Welcome to NIASO. Today we have a very difficult topic. So, as we all know, there were many people that were taken from the African continent to various parts of the world as slaves throughout some period in our history. This is really challenging, very upsetting, and question or the reason why it is necessary for us to understand what our people have been through, those who were taken and those who remained. And I guess we'll preface with this. If you have a relative, say you're on the continent, your family's always lived there, and you have an uncle and aunt, your mum, who goes overseas, goes somewhere, they go to a different country. If for whatever reason they are not able to come back, they're still your family. If 5 years pass and they don't come back, 10 years, they're still your family, they're still your mom, your cousin, whatever, your uncle. If they never come back, they're still your family. If them and their children don't come back, they're still family. If them and their children and generations pass, they're still family. So for those who are on the continent who's never left, it is possible for some of them that some of their family members were taken. And these family members are now African American, African Brazilians, people in the Caribbean, all over the world, in places that they were taken. They're still family. There's one of the challenges I've noticed is, although you hear about the slave trade, but what is really taught about the slave trade in African education institutions? These are our family members. But do our schools, our universities, our colleges teach what happened to our people? I know there are different schools of thought that we know lots of them are just kidnapped, taken. There are different schools where some people may feel such and such a person may have sold. Others feel differently. There are all kinds of explanation, but the only thing that we know is a lot of the time is the people who wrote those histories were part of the very people that took the people. So it begs the question in terms of who would do something wrong and then say, I raised my hand and I did it wrong. So the version of events we have in terms of how people were taken, all of that is not the focus of this conversation. The focus of this conversation is to ask African education institutions, are we doing enough to teach about what happened to our own people who were taken from the continent and taken into slavery? I found out a lot more about African American history just very recently. And what I want to share is one of the videos that I found that provides more of an insight. So we see all over the internet, there are conversations between African Americans and Africans and this and that and the other. We don't really understand, if people don't really understand what our relatives and the facts that these are our relatives have gone through, then empathy may not necessarily fully be there for some people because they have no awareness. I didn't know. Now, for me personally, my ancestors were amongst the ones taken to slavery, and definitely in the US and the Carolinas. But also for me personally, my ancestors were amongst the very small number that were returned to Sierra Leone, Freetown. So I can see things from both sides, as you may expect, because a whole bunch of different people who may not have even been related border ship and end up on the continent. And there's a whole other video there to be made. So, but the focus of this video is that are African education institutions doing enough to teach about what happened to our own people? Are we actually teaching every child before they finish high school in every African country must really understand about what happened to their people, because it's all our people, because people are kidnapped from all over the continent. So every child, before they finish high school, really, and this may be a petition to ministers of education, every child should know what happened to our people once they were taken from the continent. And even if some people may have thought, okay, they're selling slavery, there was nothing ever like this conceived in the minds of the people who were on the continent. So this video here, I found this video, and there are plenty online. We're going to do a series just to bring light and understanding to what happened to our people when they were taken to different parts of the world and enslaved and tortured, and just the horror of it. But it's something that is part of our African tapestry, and it's something that every African person must really understand. It is quite short, it's only 5 minutes. 1525 to 1866, 12.5 million Africans were taken from their homeland. So 12.5 million people, approximately. That's a huge number of people. So those who, you had your sister suddenly disappeared and they were taken, but you remain, the other family members remain on the continent, and generations pass, but these are still blood relatives. And as you go through, this is only a 5-minute video, but it's clear that even as you watched through this was something that people decided was the right thing to do, that they went and created vessels to kidnap, capture, just however they got people, to get people and put people in such inhumane conditions. So please, I'll encourage you to watch the video, and perhaps we need to have a bigger conversation with Ministry of Education that we need to understand the African history and the history of the African people. And these are African people, those who were taken from the continent. We need to understand their history, and their history needs to be taught in our schools, because these people came from the continent. These people have bloodline family relatives who are still in various countries, even if they do not necessarily know them. So this is the first of the series, and we're really going to try and encourage that we should focus sometimes, as a lot of Africa was colonized, we end up learning more about other people's country and what happened to other people group and not to our own people. So we have to take the steps to bridge that gap. And as we encourage at NIASO, we're encouraging people to go study in Africa. We're encouraging the entire diaspora, saying, if you want to study, take your money, take your intellect, and go study on the continent. But as people come to study on the continent, and there's more an increase in the diaspora wanting to return or at least go visit the continent, it is really important that we on the continent, or people on the continent, understand the journey that the diaspora has been through. And to me, it is an absolute miracle that anybody survived. Like, even just the journey, it is an absolute divine miracle that anybody survived. So for people to survive and to thrive, and as we go through this African American history series, you will see that it wasn't just even the journey, even after they arrive, and as time goes on, it's one major obstacle or one major impediment or just one major something destructive after the other. So sharing this video, I hope you'd stop and take some time to watch it, learn something, and then rethink how we feel towards our African American families. Okay, until next time, these are tough conversations, but at some point we have to share them, and we have to understand our people, and we have to have so much more compassion for our family members who are taken and have been put through such horrific experiences. So continue to be wonderful and awesome, and until next time, we'll speak again. Thank you for dropping by. Like, subscribe, and share. Take care. Bye.